Good day, pre-algebra. Claire, shh, we're recording. Here we go. Try two. Start strong. We are starting our fourth unit. Your binders should be open to CO19. Liv, binder open to CO19. Okay.
I was already there.
Let's go. Try two has begun. And we're going to focus on the relationship between decimals, fractions, and percentages. Okay, they're all pretty much related. Who's got cousins in the school? Anyone raise your hand if you got cousins in the school? No? Okay. Well, if you think about your own cousins, like you're related, right? You show up at all the same weddings and reunions and holiday parties, things like that, but you might not look the same. Okay? Fractions, decimals, and percentages are very, very similar, right? They don't look the same, but they are all very much related. And we're going to start by looking at the relationship between decimals and percentages, okay? We've got a number line here, and this is going to represent the scale of percentages. At the far left, we have 0%, and on the far right, we have 100%. Okay? So put those values in first, 0% and 100%. And then it says we're going to divide this line below into tenths. Okay? Now, it can be difficult to divide something evenly into sections if you start at the left and kind of guess. So we're going to divide this in half. That's a little bit easier. Okay? And that's going to be our 50% there. All right, so start by dividing it more or less in half. And now, when you're making in your tick marks to 50%, it's not 10, you're only going 5. So 0%, and then 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, and there's going to be 50%. So here we go. Fill those in there. Okay. One of my college classes was dividing a line, and so that's why mine looks so perfect. I aced that class. Right? And then on the right side of 50, we're going 60, 70, 80, 90, and then up to 100. So 60%, 70%, 80%, 90%, and then we have 100%. Okay? And then up top, we're going to write the decimal values of each of these. So 0%, its decimal value would just be 0. Who knows the decimal value of 10%? The value of 10% written in decimal form, yeah. 0.1, or just for kicks, I'm going to put 0.10. Okay, but 0.1 is the same thing. So if you only want to put that, that's just fine. Above 20%, 0.20, 30%, 0.30, 40%, 0.40, and so on. 0.50, 0.60, 0.70, 0.80, 0.90, and then 100% is what? 1 whole, okay? So 1 or 1.00. So immediately now, what connections are you seeing between percentages and decimals? Jimena, do you have your binder? Do you know where it is?
Yeah.
Where is it? Oh. What is the connection between percentages and decimals? Can you take out a piece of notebook paper and then follow along? I can get some of the back for you. Take a look at what we have up there. What are the connections? What is the connection between decimals and percentages? Just right out of that. Anybody knows anything? Connor?
So that every decimal form, I don't really know how to explain this.
Okay.
It's like every point zero something, or like if it was like 0.15, it would turn into 15%.
Okay, so what Connor's kind of describing here is that, like, take a look at 70%. Its decimal value is 0.70 or 0.70. 30%. 0.30 or 0.30, 90%, 0.90, 90. So Connor's kind of making the leap here. If we did have a 15%, which is not listed here, but we'll just put it in here. Okay? If we had a 15%, what would its decimal value be? 0.15, right? There's that relationship there between decimals and percentages that makes them very recognizable. Some of you, when you were calculating your grade on the test, and you put in your calculator 26 divided by 32 or whatever it was, like that decimal that it gave you, you're able to see your percentage. Okay, it's kind of those first two numbers that come after the decimal, right? So 30%, we've got that here. It's marked. We already wrote it as both a decimal and a percentage. 65%, where would that go? It's a Monday after 5 days off, so I'm starting a little bit slow here, but stick with me. Where would 65% go? Ava?
Between 60% and 70%.
Between 60% and 70%. And what would its decimal value be, do you think?
0.65.
0.65. 99%. Describe its location, Layla. Right next to 100%. 99%. What would its decimal value be, do you think? 0.99. Right, there's that definite relationship there between decimals and percentages. 0.08. So now we're kind of looking at the decimal row. 0.08. Where would that go, Dominic?
Behind the 10.
Right here,
Like right
perhaps?
there.
Good morning. 0.08, and what percentage would that be? 8%. Okay, 8%. 25%, in between 20% and 30%. 0.25. Gets a little bit messy the more we put on here, but 100%, we already got that one written as well. And 0.82, between what two values? 0.82, Kayla. Right about there, right? 0.82, 82%. Okay? So the whole point of this is to see that connection, see that relationship between percentages and decimals. That whatever your percentage is, it's going to be those first two digits after the decimal point. Okay? And then here's where folks get tripped up. That's why it's a watch out wording here. Something like 0.7. It might be very, very tempting to write this as 7%, but is 0.7 equal to 7%? No. What's it equal to? 70%. 70%, right? 0.7 is the same thing as 0.70. Okay? And you need those two digits after the decimal, and so it would be 70%. 3%, it might be very tempting to write this as 0.3. Was that right?
No.
No. What do you need?
0.
0.03, right? 0.03. Just kind of how this 0.08 that we had up here, right, was 8% there. Which shows up again, okay? 0.08, talk about that one, that's 8%, because that 0 is on the left side of the 8, okay? 0.1, what percent is that?
10%.
Anybody? 10%. Same thing as 0.10. 10%. And then 60%. 0.6. And it's a good habit just to write in there the 0.60. Okay, so you see that 60 and that 0.60, and that helps avoid these mistakes here. But if there's any part of decimals that gets tricky, it's with that whole 7 versus 70%, 3%, 0.3, things like that. Okay. Then I guess your homework for tomorrow, we can do a couple of them now, is to just work through the rest of this one pager. Like I said, 5 days off. Let's start slow. It says convert each decimal to a percentage. 0.22? 22%. How do we know that? Because those first two digits after the decimal are the percentage. Okay? Any on here that you look at and you're like, I'm not so sure about that one. Layla? 1.56 as a percentage. What do you think? 156%, right? We've got this decimal here that's greater than a whole. And if you look back in our number line, up above there, like 100%, we set that equal to 1 whole. So if our decimal is greater than 1 whole, our percentage is going to be greater than 100%. Well, how's that possible? Extra credit on a test, right? Those motivational things give 110%, okay? So it is possible to have values that are greater than 100% if our decimal is greater than 1, okay? That'd be 156%. Kelly?
1.
1 whole. 100%, right? This would be like 1.00, 100%. Okay? Yeah, so those ones with, ones in front, just recognize, hey, it's greater than a whole, so my percentage will be greater than 100%. The two brain busters says write a percentage between 1.66 and 1.69. So one strat for that might be thinking of a decimal that's between 1.66 and 1.69, and then converting that decimal to a percentage. Then the next one says write a decimal between 84% and 85%. That might take a little bit of thought. See what you come up with there. A decimal between 84% and 85%. This one you might want to start by thinking, well, I know that 84% is 0.84. 85% would be 0.85. We're looking for a decimal between 0.84 and 0.85. Okay, see what you come up with there. And then time for review down at the bottom. Equation solving, you've got a one-stepper with addition and subtraction, a one-stepper with multiplication and division, and then a two-stepper. For this one, you do need to show work. And when I say show work with solving an equation, what am I looking for? What was our strat for solving equations in the last unit?
Right, so you're thinking, or what were you putting in the calculator?
No. Opposite operations. Excellent, right? For these three down here, we're doing the ops. Opposite operations to solve those. Okay? Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, compliments, congratulations, criticisms on CO19. You have 8 minutes, and most of you are probably, if not finished, close to being finished with those top 16 or so, which means number game tomorrow. Definitely doable. Yeah? Don't forget to show your work at the bottom. If you don't show your work on those bottom 3, you're not going to get credit. Okay, I want to see the opposite operations. If you forgot opposite operations, look back. This one here, you can find it in PO 16. This is PO 17. Here's PO 18. Okay, look back at what opposite operations looks like if you forgot, but you do need to show that. Okay? Okay, that's all you have.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.